It is 7 o'clock, so I will call this meeting to order. This is the regular Housing and Redevelopment Authority meeting of the City of Richfield of September 18th, 2023. And we will start with the oath of office with our newest commissioner, Commissioner Young. Want to head over to the podium?
Raise your right hand, repeat after me. Okay. I, John Young,
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Minnesota
and the Constitution of the State of Minnesota
and the Charter and ordinances of the City of Richfield,
and the Charter and ordinances of the City of Richfield,
and that I will faithfully execute
and discharge
the duties of the Office of Commissioner of the Housing and Redevelopment Authority
the duties of the Office of Commissioner of the Housing and Redevelopment Authority
of the City of Richfield according to law
and
the best of my ability and understanding.
and the best of my ability and understanding.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Yes, welcome.
We will move on to the next item, which is to elect a new secretary for the Richfield Housing and Redevelopment Authority. Is there a nomination?
I'll nominate Commissioner Hayfoot-O'Leary.
Commissioner Hayfoot-O'Leary has been nominated. Is there a second?
Yes, I will second that.
There's been a motion and a second. Is there any other nominations? Any other nominations? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Congratulations on your new appointment of secretary. And then we will move on to our next item, which is open forum. So each speaker is to keep their comment period to 3 minutes to allow sufficient time for others. Comments are an opportunity to address the HRA. Please refer to the HRA agenda and minutes webpage for additional ways to submit comments, but you can call into the open forum right now by dialing 1-415-655-0001 using webinar access code 2632-754-5422, and the password is 1234. Is there anybody called in right now?
There is not.
Okay, well, if anybody does, please stop and we will hear them out. But I do believe we have some updates from our last open forum, and so I will turn this over to the Executive Director.
Thank you, Chair Vries-Daniels. Yes, there were 2 questions at the open forum at the regular meeting of the HRA on August 21st. The first was regarding a hypothetical about a developer qualifying for a tax subsidy that would allow non-payment of taxes. The question was, how does this show up on the HRA balance sheet? And I want to start by saying there isn't a situation in which the HRA can authorize non-payment of taxes. There are a couple of instances, like with a tax increment district or a tax abatement district, where property owners pay their full taxes and can be refunded a portion of those taxes for qualified expenditures. And while that transaction, where the taxes come in and then are refunded, while that is certainly shown within our accounting software and reported to the auditor each year, it does not show up in the HRA budget document because it's a net zero for the HRA. It's an in and out. What you do see in the HRA budget is a transfer that represents contributions to the Housing and Redevelopment Fund. And those are contributions from those TIF districts. We often talk about the 15% that will be contributed to the HRA Housing and Redevelopment Fund. And you can see that in the budget. In 2024, we're estimating a transfer of $572,000 to that fund. So that's what you can see. The second question was, do the HRA bylaws place a cap on the amount that can be considered by the body? And it does not. The HRA bylaws are generally procedural. They deal with how we conduct our meetings, how we handle elections, things of that nature. There isn't anything either in statute or the HRA bylaws that puts a cap on the amount that you can approve in an agreement like a TIF agreement or something like that.
Great. Thank you so much for those follow-ups from our last meeting. I will move us on to approval of, 1, the special work session of July 29th, 2023, and 2, the regular Housing and Redevelopment Authority meeting of August 21st, 2023. Is there a motion for approval of these minutes?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. Any comments, corrections, concerns? All right, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And the motion passes. All right, item number 1 is approval of our agenda. Is there a motion for approval?
I will move the approval of the agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. Is there any alterations requested? All right, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The agenda is approved. Takes us to item number 2, and I will pass it over to Executive Director Paleman.
Thank you, Chair, members of the board. The consent calendar may contain several separate items which are acted upon by the HRA in one motion. Once the consent calendar has been approved, the individual items and recommended actions have also been approved. No further HRA action on these items is necessary. On tonight's consent agenda, there is one item. It is to consider an adjustment to the payment standard for Section 8 for the Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher Program. That concludes tonight's consent calendar.
Is there any request to remove anything from the consent calendar? All right, seeing none, is there a motion for approval of the consent calendar?
I move the consent calendar.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The consent calendar is approved. Taking us to item number 4, which is consideration of a resolution authorizing the executive director to modify the new home loans in certain circumstances. I'll pass that off to Executive Director Paleman.
Thank you. I'm going to have Assistant Director Julie Urban present the staff report.
Thank you, Chair Vries Daniels, members of the Commission. The new home loan program provides affordable homeownership opportunities to households earning 80% of the area median income or less. From 1983 to 2017, the Housing and Redevelopment Authority facilitated the sale of new and substantially rehabilitated homes to qualified homebuyers. In the case of 51 of the homes, the HRA issued 30-year deferred interest-free loans to cover the gap between the cost of the home and the amount the homebuyer could afford. The size of these loans vary from $11,900 to $45,000, with an average size of around $22,000. The loans are due and payable with one of the following occurrences. First, if the property is sold, transferred, or conveyed in some way. Second, if the property is rented, leased, or unoccupied. Third, if there is a default with the first mortgage. 4, if the first mortgage is satisfied or assigned, or the homeowner does not occupy the home for more than 1 year. And finally, the mortgage is due and payable if that first mortgage is paid in full. At the conclusion of the 30-year term, the loan is due and payable. In the past, homeowners have asked for modifications to and forgiveness of their loans, which have been brought before the HRA on an individual basis. As several of the remaining 10 active loans near their 30-year maturity date, staff is anticipating future requests, as those loans will become due and payable. As several of these, rather than have individual homeowners approach the HRA, staff is asking the HRA to grant the authority to the executive director to modify new home loans in the following circumstances. First, when a homeowner pays off a first mortgage, would allow the executive director to modify the mortgage, which would remove the requirement that the HRA's loan also be repaid. Second, when a homeowner refinances, modify the mortgage to remove the requirement that the HRA's loan also be repaid, assuming that the proposed refinance would meet the HRA's subordination policy. Third, reduce the amount of the loan to be repaid upon the sale of the property in cases of financial hardship. And fourth, when a loan reaches its 30-year maturity, provide a satisfaction, thereby forgiving the loan. In the case of the first two circumstances, homeowners have struggled to make what is essentially a balloon payment when paying off their first mortgage or refinancing. they are unlikely to have sufficient funds to also pay off their new home loan. In the third circumstance, homeowners have had to come before the HRA to explain in public their personal situation of financial hardship to request a reduction or forgiveness of the loan. And under the fourth circumstance, this addresses the requirement to repay the loan upon maturity, which is unique to this HRA program. In the case of other loan programs, the HRA has typically considered 30 years a sufficient amount of time to ensure that a homeowner isn't being unduly enriched by the HRA's contribution. And in the case of rehabilitation, a more than sufficient amount of time to cover the lifespan of the work. While repaid funds are certainly recycled and reused for affordable homeownership efforts, the program is not dependent upon these funds in order to continue. Staff is recommending that the HRA consider this change in the program to allow the forgiveness of these loans after 30 years in order to encourage equitable access to wealth building and housing stability in our lower income households. And that concludes my report. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Does anyone have any questions? Yes, go ahead.
So just to clarify, in most cases, they're getting this loan at the same time as they're getting their first mortgage, right?
Yes, correct.
So if they pay off their first mortgage early, does this just stay outstanding until they reach 30 years with that, or what would happen?
So we would modify the mortgage to extend it to its full 30 years.
Okay,
A lot of these loans are old, and the documents that were used at the beginning, there were some variations, there were some unique circumstances, so we really, it just seems like it would be a challenge for someone to pay us back, and in some cases we missed it. We didn't even know that they'd paid off their first mortgage and it was due and payable, so we just really recommend that we just allow it to go its full 30-year term.
yeah. Is there any background on why this was not forgiven like some of the other programs?
I do not know. When we did an analysis of the new home loans several years ago, it was a bit of a mystery. I think that documents were, it was brand new for the HRA to do this in the early 80s. Documents were used from Minnesota Housing, and Minnesota Housing loans are always due and payable at 30 years.
Okay.
So that's my best guess.
Okay. I guess my only other question, is there any requirement that it remain owner-occupied, or is there a risk that somebody could, say, be in a better financial circumstance at year 20, buy a new house that they can now afford, and then just keep this knowing that they'll get this loan forgiven?
Well, so after 30 years, are you saying, or when?
Right, I'm saying if they're no longer occupying the house, but they're the owner, the trigger of it being sold and having to repay it at that time was not met. So my question is, if the home is no longer owner-occupied at the time this 30-year clock hits, do they still get the forgiveness? If I got this 30 years ago, I've been living in another house for 10 years.
And we
but
didn't
it's
know
rented
it?
out.
You mean, like, we wouldn't have realized it?
Well, I'm asking if you do realize that, are they disqualified from that? Is it required that it be owner-occupied to maintain this loan?
Yes, then it would be due and payable if you are not occupying the property.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? I have a comment maybe before we make a motion that may potentially alter the motion. Is there, personally, I feel like this is great and fine. I think especially in situation number 3, like we've talked a lot about, what that means to someone, right? But I also very much believe in transparent government, and these were public loans taken. And so is there a way to add into this resolution that we also every month receive a report of anything that's been changed or forgiven, just so we can keep an eye and know what is being forgiven and what is being transferred?
Yeah, that's perfectly fine. Yep, we could certainly report on when we have done modifications.
Okay.
Yep.
Great. That was my question. Does anyone want to make a motion? I can also make a motion, but go ahead.
So I'll move to adopt a resolution authorizing the executive director to modify new home loans in certain circumstances and also to report back to the HRA.
And I will second it.
It has been moved and seconded. Anybody have any comments, questions, concerns? I will just say thank you for bringing this forward. I think it makes sense as you think about our total portfolio, but also being adaptable to making sure that we are still aware of where that is going and being continued. Good. If there's no other commentary or questions, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And the motion carries. Or is approved, I should say. All right, item number 4, consider resolution supporting a proposed velodrome project with the Minnesota Cycling Center. I'll hand it over to Executive Director Palmer.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to ask our Economic Development Manager, Jan Youngquist, to present the staff report.
Good evening, Chair Reese Daniels and Commissioners. The Minnesota Cycling Center has expressed interest in developing a multi-purpose velodrome facility on properties located at 78th Street East that are owned by the Housing and Redevelopment Authority and the Mathwig Trust. The property at 1710 78th Street East was purchased by the city in 2000 for the construction of the 77th Street underpass. The city transferred ownership of the property to the HRA in August of 22. In December 2021, the HRA accepted the generous donation of the property at 1600 78th Street East by the Mathwig Trust. The trust continues to own the property in between these two lots at 1620 78th Street East and has indicated a desire to work collaboratively with the city and the HRA to holistically redevelop the area. In 2022, the city and the HRA undertook a visioning process for the 3 properties, and a marketing brochure was prepared. Using the document as a guide, the HRA prepared and published a request for information, RFI, in January of this year, with the hope of attracting a private partner with whom to redevelop the land. The RFI led to several conversations with prospective developers, and in June, the Cycling Center contacted staff to discuss a proposal to develop a velodrome on the properties. The proposed concept includes a multi-purpose facility with a 200-meter cycling track, a flexible infield that could include basketball, volleyball, and pickleball courts, concert and event space, meeting rooms, and retail space. On August 8th, the Cycling Center presented conceptual plans for the project at a joint work session of the City Council, the HRA, and the Planning Commission. Policymakers expressed support for the project in concept and directed staff to continue conversations with the Cycling Center and the Trust to pursue development. The Minnesota Cycling Center has requested a resolution from the HRA confirming its support for the concept of the project at this location, which will help them as they begin immediately seeking funding for the project. So the resolution before you does not guarantee or obligate the approval of any requests associated with the project, but it indicates the HRA is supportive of the concept, will continue to work with the Cycling Center and the Trust to explore options for redevelopment of the properties, will consider providing financial assistance for the project, and will cooperate with the Minnesota Cycling Center in seeking additional funding for the project. That concludes my presentation, but I'd like to let you know that there are representatives from the Minnesota Cycling Center in the audience as well.
All right, before we ask for a motion, I'll ask if there are any questions for either staff or the Minnesota Cycling Center representatives. Yes, go ahead.
So my question is, there's not any specific period or specific commitment, and I support the resolution as written, but I guess I am wondering how staff at this point would handle if you had another interested party in this property. Or if you would not be interested now, if you push them off, when would you, basically how long would it take before we were really seriously considering other options?
Thank you for the question. We did send a letter to the Cycling Center where they put in money in escrow to cover legal costs that we've been incurring. In there, we had talked about looking to the middle of June 2023 after the legislative session. And so we have a commitment to work with them until that time.
Okay, that sounds like a reasonable timeline. So just to be clear, if somebody wanted to build a hotel tomorrow, you would say, talk to us after June of 2023? Or
Correct.
2024, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that seems reasonable, and I otherwise support this resolution.
Any other questions? All right, is there a motion?
I will move the staff recommendation.
A second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions, commentary? Yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to point out, we did receive an email from a resident in support of this resolution, and so I wanted to note that in the public record.
Thank you.
Yeah, I will also say I have yet to hear a negative comment. I probably heard 10 people saying positive things about it, so.
I, too, am very excited and grateful that people reached out and shared either side, but it's always nice to hear positives as well. Yes, go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to say, I think it's a really interesting concept. I like the fact that if it does come to fruition, it's kind of a unique destination place. And I think that facilities like that kind of help put Richfield on the map. I like the flexibility, adaptability of it being multi-purpose, that it could provide, meeting space, additional sporting facilities, perhaps even like, as it's in the document here, a concert venue. So I like all those aspects of it. So I like this because I think it helps kind of move the project forward for more exploration. But like it's been indicated tonight, it doesn't lock us into any particular financial support because, of course, for that we need more details, and it supports the concept of it, but we're not locked in at this point. So I do support this motion.
I had a question for the representatives from the Cycling Center. I noticed you were at PennFest on Sunday and you were getting a lot of feedback. Can you summarize some of the feedback that you received from people that were at PennFest?
Yes, thank you, Commissioner. The response we had was overwhelmingly positive. Very excited and very interested questions and comments from residents. Many people had heard about our concept through media reports and through some of the social media activity that was going on, and we're very excited to see something like this come to Richfield as an opportunity for a destination for folks from around the Twin Cities and frankly the world, but also as a place for residents of the community to come and have access to new sporting and recreational activities. So thank you for that.
Did you? Okay. Any other comments? All right. It has been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? The motion passes. Thank you. All right, item number 6, HRA discussion items. Anybody have any discussion items? No? None? Okay. Item number 7, executive director's report.
Thank you, members of the board. I just wanted to remind you that the renovation celebration, our Richfield Remodeled Homes Tour, yes, is coming up on October 7th. The mailers that you have in front of you will go out later this week to all households in Richfield, so watch for that. Should be really exciting. We have some great homes that have taken advantage of our HRA programs. And you can see what folks have done in the community. Also, a beautiful, beautiful garden on the tour this year. So some outdoor and indoor ideas.
Excellent. And I hear you're looking for volunteers to help out.
We are looking for volunteers to help out. They can contact our housing specialists in the HRA if you are interested.
Perfect. Thank you. Anything else? Okay. That takes us to item number 8, claims. Is there a motion to approve the claims?
I'll move to approve claims.
Second?
It has been moved and seconded. Any comments, discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The claims are approved. And that will take us to adjournment. Thank you, everyone. And no EDA.
Well, John, you made it through the first meeting.
24 minutes. It's not-
Yes.